Hey everyone, today we're going to be going over Realist and how to use it in Matrix. So let me go ahead and share my screen with everyone. That way you guys can see what exactly I do. Okay, so I'm going to go over here to Matrix. I've zoomed in up here so you guys can see everything. Let me just drag this to the bottom. So now that I'm on REIN, I'm going to look for a Realist sign. So here we've got Realist, but there's also another place where we can go on Realist. We can go up here, and there's one more third place. So let me just go to one of my listings real quick. Let's click on my Sandpiper property. So when you guys are on the listing, there is another section up here where all these little tabs where you see a TX. This is the Realist property link. This right here will bring you directly to this property. So whenever I'm looking up some specifics on the property like tax records or if it's on flood, this is where I'm going to go. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this and see what kind of info it gives me. And then I'll show you guys what I look for, and then we'll go to Realist a different way so then you guys can actually see how to look up specific properties, specific people, rather than going straight from Matrix. So here on Realist, what I can see is I can see the owner information. So I can see there's two owners here. I can see their billing address. So this is actually the house that they have all their mail sent to because this is a second home for them. So this is a good example that you guys can see this. It shows if it's owner occupied. This is correct if they are not. It shows some tax info as well, the tax billing zip code. Here I can see all the subdivision. Let's see, the census, zip code, flood zone. This one's big. Now, VE is something you most likely won't see, but with this condo association, the flood insurance is built within the condo fee. Most cases, we're going to look for an AE or an X. If we see an AE, that definitely means it needs flood insurance. If we see an X, it does not. So that's something that you can always look up real quick to see if your clients ask, hey, is it in a flood zone? Now, this stuff is generally pretty accurate, but you're going to want an insurance agent to check as well. Here, whenever I'm doing a listing, this is where I find the tax ID. And then this is where I also find the legal description, so the actual address of the property. Here we can see the assessed values, so we can see 2018, 17, 16. We can see the assessed value total, so usually this is the number that we're looking for. We can see the land value and then the improved value, which is like the actual home. So this property is assessed at 634, and we're currently listed, I believe, at 629.9. Now, something else that you need to look for, especially for your listings, the tax, the actual total tax here. So if I go to 2018, I'm going to see the taxes for this property was $6,363 a year. So whenever you're putting a listing and it says estimated taxes, this is where you're going. Here I can see other characteristics of the property. Here I can see an estimated value of what Realist thinks the comps are here, and then puts it right in the middle. Also shows how confident it is in that score. 58 isn't that great. Normally, Realist isn't the best source to go to, but it's something that you can look at. I never really consider it. Something I would just look at is the assessed value. The value here is very high, but obviously we've been listed for 6 months now. Hasn't sold, and we're listed at 629.9. So you never know. Here we'll go down to when it was listed. So these people were in expired. So then that's where I came in and I called them, took the listing. So you can see it was expired. I can see the last time it was sold. So this is always important to see what people bought stuff for. So I can see that my people bought this place. They didn't buy it for 780. That might have been the people before them. Let's see. They bought this. There we go. No. 634. So they bought it for 634 way back ago. So in 2012. There we go. So October 12th, 2012, they bought it for 634. They bought it cash. So I can see here that this is what they owe on the place, or not owe, what exactly they would net off of selling it. And this is always useful when you're working with buyers. You can actually see what they bought it for, but not just that. You can also see if they've ever refinanced, and where you would see that in the mortgage history here. Here you can see there's not many because most of these people buy these second homes as cash. So I'm going to show you guys another example. Let's go over to just a random listing. That way we can look up some interesting stuff. So let's go to the new listings on the market. And then these are all the new listings today. I'm just going to click on this random property. You know what? That's a brand new home. That is not a good example. We want an older house. Here we go. This looks like an older house. Day 0 on the market, which means it came on the market today. I'm going to go to this Realist. So I'm going to click on the TX, and that's going to show me all the info on the house. So now it's going to show me the owner's names. Flood zone, so this one says AE, so that does need flood insurance, so that's good for our buyers to know. Here I can see the estimated taxes, I can see the assessed value, I can see other characteristics of the property, so this is always good to see. I can see how big the lot is, I can see how many acres that is, so 0.37, that's actually a pretty good lot. I can see what foundation it's going to crawl, what year it was built. Here sometimes you'll see tax records say 3 for bedrooms, MLS says 4. They might have converted another bedroom to make it 4 bedrooms. So that's why a tax history shows 3, but the MLS says 4. Here we can see how big the porch is, how big the deck/patio is, how big the garage is. The garage is 705 square feet. That is a massive garage. And then here we can see another estimated value, 285. It's 75% accurate, but you never really know. Here we can see the last time it was sold, last time it was bought, when it was rented, it sold, expired. So you can see all that info. And then we'll go to mortgage history. We can see each time there was a refi or a resale. So it's pretty cool to go through and see all of this stuff. It's almost like REIN, except REIN is a lot better. But if you're looking for quick info, Realist is definitely the place to go to, because all I did was click on the listing from here to go directly to here. Right now, I don't believe there is a button where we could do that for REIN. So that is kind of annoying, but I'm sure eventually one day they'll get it there. Here we can even click on comparables of this property for what Realist thinks comparables are. I never use this, and here they use Adobe's Flash, so I've got to allow Flash. I know REIN is trying to get rid of all Flash products, so we'll eventually see where Realist ends up going. Here, this is what Realist is pulling up. So this is a new view of Realist you haven't seen yet. If we were to go to Realist on its own, this is what it would show us. But right now, I believe it's trying to show us comps, and it is not. So that's a great example of just Realist not working. But we're going to go back and let me show you how to get to the screen. So I'm going to go to home, or I could just click on this button up here. And sometimes I just click down here, but I'll go up here and just click Realist. Now it's going to bring me up the same map view we just saw. And from there, we can look up owners, we can look up property addresses. So if I ever come across a lead and they didn't tell me their address, I can look up their name and see if I can find them. So I'm going to go ahead and type Frangulis, which you have to do the name, and then Austin. So last name, then first name, and then now you can actually see the property that I live at. So we can see here that it shows me the address, and then usually if I would click on this info, it would show me more info on it. So it shows me here more than what we saw earlier. So we can see the sale price, we can see the owner, we can see the legal description. This was a brand new property, so there's not much info on it just yet. We can see how big the lot is. We can see the assessed value. We can see a map, so property lines of it. Now, this isn't always completely accurate, but it's pretty close. Again, we can see another map view of where it's at, and then you can see all the mortgage history on it, which is pretty cool. So that is my house. Now, something else that's sweet, and from here, we can look on a flood map, and see different colors of where flood would actually be on the property. We can see here that the orange says it's out of special flood hazard area. So that's good. So it's out of the flood zone. I do carry flood insurance, but that's just for my well-being for what I want. I can click on neighborhood profile here, and this would show me demographics, statistics of the neighborhood. But again, like we did our video on REIN, you could actually see all of that as well. This is just kind of an okay version of it. This is actually pretty cool. I didn't even see this one. The average temperature of the area. That's hilarious. We can see students, the schools, all the ratings on it. I mean, you can go down very, very to the nitty gritty here. We'll click on neighbors. I've never even used this, so I'm pretty curious on what it's going to say. Let's see. Oh, okay, so it's just showing the actual neighbors in the neighborhood. So I'm going to zoom in here, and then I can see other neighbors around here and see info on them, which is pretty interesting to see as well. Let's look at market trends for this specific property. And it may not be as accurate because this is new construction. Okay, it's just showing the zip code compared to the rest of Virginia Beach. And other stuff like that. So if you like maps and all that, this is cool. It's nothing I would ever really use. And then if we go to comparables, it should show me other comps in the neighborhood compared. Now Lagomar is a weird, very big neighborhood that's like separated into 3 divisions almost. So it's always interesting how you can compare Lagomar to even itself. But I'm curious what Realist will pop up. Usually when I'm doing comps, I'm going to pull up RPR and not Realist. I usually just use Realist for listing stuff, flood history, taxes, assessed value. But now we can do that with REIN as well. And it's not even showing anything here. So maybe it's just thinking too hard on what comps. I have no idea. And then let's go back to property detail. So really, that's everything when it comes to Realist. Let me go back to the homepage again, just so you guys can see how I looked up an owner. Let's just say I didn't put in a specific person. All they told me was their last name. You know, my last name, Frangoulis, is pretty unique, so it's pretty easy to find someone. But if you typed in, if someone's name was David Johnson, if I look up just Johnson, we're going to see 1 million people just because the name is so common, and I'm sure even Realist right here, yeah, it says there's more than 1,000 results. So let's go to refine search. Let's look up a David Johnson. So okay, here we go. So if we go in Hampton Roads, David Johnson, I just made up a random name. We can see there's 74 owners named David Johnson. So here, just say if you knew David Johnson and they're like, yeah, I live by the ocean front, boom, this would have to be the David Johnson. So then now we can look up view reports, and then at this point we'll be able to see the info on the house, so which is pretty cool. So I can see it was last sold for $471, how big the house is, what year it was built. So it's really cool that you can find all of this info. It's almost like being a little detective, which is always pretty cool. But let's go back to Realist here. And then let's just say, you know the last name, it's kind of unique. I'll just type in Frangoulis because you've got me and my dad in the area. This only does Hampton Roads. Even though it shows a giant map of the U.S., it's not going to show outside of Hampton Roads. So I don't even know where this is pulling up. But let's go ahead and just type in Frangoulis. And then it should show me and my dad. It shows exactly where we live. Something else that's cool about this that I'm just now noticing, if we zoom in here, this actually shows the school zones for high schools. So here we can see that my dad is zoned in the neighborhood of Ocean Lakes, and then my house is zoned, I already know, but I just want you guys to see it wherever it shows. There it is. So it shows that it is zoned for Kellam. And even though our houses are literally 5 minutes away from each other, we can see that we're in two different school zones, which is always interesting to see. So if you want to look at the two, you can. Here you can even export names into mailing lists. But again, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that through REIN just because it is a lot easier to use. There are some other options that you can pull up over here, like certain boundaries. If I want to see the middle schools instead, now I'm going to let it load, and then now I can see which middle schools are which. So I can actually see that the middle school that my dad has is just on the line. And yep. So let me go back. And now I can see his address is just on the line. Even though there's something directly across the street, it doesn't matter. He is actually zoned for Princess Anne Middle, even though across the street is Corporate Landing. And then we are actually in the same middle school zone. So this is all Princess Anne Middle. So this is cool to be able to look up the boundaries and see that as well. Here you could just look up a bunch of different stuff, which is always pretty interesting and fun to go with. But I like using REIN better. I'm just curious to see what the elementary is going to pop up real quick. Okay, so there's a ton of elementary schools out there. Here, my dad's is zoned for 3 Oaks, so it's a little weird zone there. And then mine is Red Mill Elementary. So it's really cool to look this stuff up. But you can even do this with address. So say you were talking to a lead and you know what house they're at, but you don't know their name. We'll just put in my property. Let's see if I just type in Beliza Court. Here we go. It shows exactly who the owner is. You just click on it and then you search, and it, boom, again, all that stuff pops up. So it's really great to use. This is great info to just be able to search and look for specific things, or if you miss stuff when you're talking to a lead, or if you're getting a listing and you don't ask the seller. Again, this is our realtor software that we get within our dues. So definitely well worth it to use. I recommend it. I do use it a lot. Not as deep as it can go, but that's where REIN's coming in, because REIN is getting better. And Realist does use Flash, so you do have to allow your computer to use Flash. So sometimes there's confusion going on there. But that is it with REIN. If you guys had any questions on it, I'm always happy to help. And again, it's basically just like you being a little realtor detective. So if you guys ever need anything, always reach out. Take care, guys.